Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is full of narrative twists and turns, but there are a few story threads left unexplained. Keep watching, because these are the biggest plot holes from Doctor Strange 2 that need some explaining. The film opens with a sequence in which an alternate Doctor Strange, known as Defender Strange, fails to protect America Chavez as she attempts to grab the Book of Vishanti. Doctor Strange of Earth 616 then wakes up in a cold sweat from what appears to be a bad dream. Very early on in the film, once America appears in his reality, Strange comes to understand that his nightmares aren't his guilty subconscious, but glimpses into other realities and other universes. Everything he saw in his dream did happen, which America proves when she drags Defender Strange's corpse out of a rooftop garden shed. The idea that dreams could potentially link divergent realities is interesting and has potential, but that potential is completely unexplored in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. No explanation is given, and seemingly contradictory evidence exists in other MCU properties. For example, Wanda manipulates dreams in Avengers Age of Ultron. What characters see has to do with their deepest fears and possible futures in their own reality. One could argue that these were visions and not true dreams, but it strains credibility that every dream, from the banal to the most extreme in every universe, is a window into another world. In the finale of WandaVision, Wanda comes to terms with what she's done and puts Westview mostly back to how it was. And just for good measure, she traps Agatha Harkness into domestic life as Agnes. Then she and Vision tuck their kids into bed one last time, knowing that everyone but Wanda will disappear once the hex wears off. But in an end credits scene, Wanda's physical form is seeking solace by the lake while her astral form studies the Darkhold. In the very last moment of the series, she hears her boys screaming out for help. That scene makes it seem as though Wanda's Tommy and Billy didn't just cease to exist with the Hex, but are out there somewhere in the multiverse. Many fans assumed the plot of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness would revolve around her traveling from universe to universe, searching for their specific variants. Instead, the Scarlet Witch is content to have her children in any reality she can find them in. Does this mean they're biologically her kids in other universes, or is she still operating hexes throughout multiple realities? And what happened to the twins from the Hex if she could still hear them? The boys' status at the end of WandaVision is never meaningfully revisited. As WandaVision drew to a close, the mystery as to what had become of the real Vision was solved. The Vision who lived with Wanda in the Hex was her creation. The one whose corpse was kept at SWORD headquarters was ultimately reanimated with traces of Wanda's chaos magic and reprogrammed to destroy Wanda and the projection of Vision. He nearly succeeded until his double stumped him, at which point White Vision essentially downloaded his foe's memories and disappeared.
I am Vision.
Many fans anticipated that White Vision would return in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, perhaps to stop Wanda from doing something terrible. Not only is there no White Vision in the film, but there's no Vision at all. Wanda and her boys live in domestic bliss in an infinite number of realities, but Vision doesn't appear to exist in any of them. What happened to all the Visions? How did all those Wandas end up with all those kids? The lack of Visions is particularly odd in light of the Illuminati's defeat of Thanos in their own universe. It involved the Darkhold and the Book of Vishanti, not Vision's sacrifice. It's possible that Vision never existed on Earth 838 as Ultron bots appeared to serve the Illuminati here. But it seems unlikely that Vision would have come to be only on Earth 616, and it seems like an oversight that White Vision doesn't return to deal with Wanda. The whole premise of WandaVision is that, following the events of Avengers Infinity War, Wanda was so traumatized by the death of her synthetic soulmate that she mind-controlled an entire town just so she could imagine having him back. In Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, she is instead single-mindedly focused on getting back to her children, and she seems to have completely given up hope of ever being with Viz again. Wanda confides to Strange that Vision believed the multiverse was real and had theories about it.
Viz had his theories. He believed it was dangerous.
Wanda claims she's being reasonable as she causes mayhem in the first half of the movie because of her motherly love. If she knew about the multiverse, especially once she had her hands on the Darkhold, it seems much more reasonable that she'd want to find a reality in which she got to be with her husband and her kids. But as we've established that there are no Visions to be found out there, even in infinite universes, maybe she knows something that we don't. Wanda is also aware of the White Vision in her own universe, even though he's gone missing. As overpowered with magic as she's become, it defies logic that she wouldn't at least try to bring him under her spell. Wanda's sharp pivot from caring only about Vision to caring only about her kids makes for thin plotting and character development. When America Chavez and Doctor Strange accidentally travel to another reality, they learn that this one is wise to the multiverse. It has designated itself Earth 838 and Strange's reality Earth 616. This is a plot complication, both within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and between Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios. But that creates an inconsistency between what Marvel Studios calls the MCU's prime reality and what Earth 838 calls it, as well as differences between what happens in the movies versus the comics. Until now, it was widely accepted that Marvel Comics largely took place in a reality known as Earth 616, while the Marvel movies and TV shows took place in one often known as Earth 199999. Though there's an increasing amount of overlap between comics and MCU storylines, the narratives and characters on the page and screen are still very much distinct from each other. America Chavez is introduced to audiences as a young and reluctant superpower wielder who can't yet control her multiverse jumping abilities. She also shows the potential for super strength and speed in her fights against Gargantos and Scarlet Witch. But where did she learn to harness any of her powers? Peter Parker had mentors like Tony Stark and Stephen Strange to guide his development. Other characters, even Strange, received some backstory and on-screen instruction from their mentors, and audiences received some explanation from the script. We have no idea how America got her power. Was she born like Thor or forged like Wanda? Then she's suddenly able to harness her power at will simply because Doctor Strange believed in her and told her to believe in herself. That's a pretty weak allusion to the concept of controlling one's fear. We see that America first teleported when she was stung by a bee, and every unintentional multiversal trip since has been related to America feeling afraid. Considering the shorter than usual runtime of Multiverse of Madness, the newest MCU character's skill set could have been better illustrated. WandaVision and Loki both contain Easter eggs and references to Nexus beings, and it's heavily implied that Wanda is one. A WandaVision faux commercial contains the tagline,
Nexus. Because the world doesn't revolve around you. Or does it?
The exact definition of a Nexus being is malleable, even in the comics, and is barely even established in the MCU. But generally, these exceedingly rare entities are keystones to the multiverse that have the power to manipulate things like time, space, and reality. Their very existence is what keeps the multiverse stable. Some fans have interpreted that Nexus beings necessarily exist in every universe. In other words, if Wanda's a Nexus being, there must be one of her in every reality. However, others believe that Nexus beings exist as single entities with the ability to do whatever they want with reality, for instance, travel between universes. If that's true, Wanda should have been able to leap from multiverse to multiverse already, or she should have been able to manipulate them without having to dreamwalk. It's a little too convenient that, although she's a nearly all-powerful being with access to a nearly all-powerful spellbook, she needs the specific gift of a single, inexperienced child whom she must kill to accomplish her ultimate goal. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.